The man who killed my husband is the same man who gave me a son. I know how that sounds. I know what you're thinking. But before you judge me, before you call me what others have called me, let me tell you how the Old West worked for women like. Let me tell you about survival when survival meant swallowing your hate and opening your door to the devil himself. My name is Eleanor Price. I'm 73 years old now, and I've carried this secret like a disease in my bones for over 50 years. The son I raised, the boy who grew into a good man, doesn't know the truth. He thinks his father was my husband, Thomas. He thinks his father was a hero. He doesn't know his real father put a bullet in Thomas's chest and left him bleeding in the dirt while I screamed. The Old West you see in stories is about cowboys and outlaws, shootouts and justice. But there's another West, the one where women had no choices, where being alone meant death, where survival sometimes meant laying down with the man who destroyed your life, because the alternative was starving in a land that showed no mercy. I hated him. God, how I hated him. Every time he touched me, I felt Thomas's blood on those hands. Every time he smiled, I saw the man who made me a widow at 23. But I also needed him. Because in 1891, in the middle of nowhere, Montana, a woman alone with no money, no family, and winter coming didn't have the luxury of hate. So yes, the man who killed my husband gave me a son. And I've lived with that contradiction every day since. This isn't a love story. This is a story about what women had to do to survive. Before I go deeper into this darkness, I need to know I'm not alone in this. Comment below what country or city you're watching from. And if you've ever had to choose between your dignity and your survival, between your hate and your needs, you'll understand what I'm about to tell you. These stories need to be remembered, even the ugly ones, especially the ugly ones. It was a Tuesday in September when my world ended. I remember because I had just finished washing sheets and they were hanging on the line, white against the blue Montana sky. Thomas had ridden out that morning to check on our cattle. We had a small ranch, nothing grand, but it was ours. We'd been married 3 years and were talking about starting a family. I never saw him alive again. The sun was setting when I heard the horse coming back. Just one horse. I stepped out onto the porch and saw Thomas's mare, but no Thomas. The saddle was empty, but there was blood. So much blood soaked into the leather. My legs gave out. I fell right there on those wooden steps and couldn't breathe. Our neighbor, old Mr. Garrett, found him 2 hours later. Thomas was lying in a ravine about 3 miles from our property. He'd been shot twice, once in the shoulder, once in the chest. The chest wound killed him. Mr. Garrett said it looked like he'd tried to crawl toward home. The dirt was torn up where his fingers had clawed at the ground. He died alone, in pain, trying to get back to me. They brought his body home, wrapped in canvas. I didn't want to look, but I had to. Had to see his face one last time. He looked so young. Thomas was only 26. His eyes were still open, staring at nothing. I closed them with my own hands. Those hands were shaking so badly, I could barely do it. The sheriff came the next day. His name was Dalton, a hard man with gray in his beard and eyes that had seen too much. He asked me questions. Did Thomas have enemies? Had anyone threatened him? Did he owe money? I said no to everything. Thomas was gentle, kind. Everyone liked him. But Sheriff Dalton had already figured it out. There'd been a man camping near our property for the past week. A drifter. Dark hair, tall, rode a black horse. Some of the ranchers had seen him. He'd asked about work, but nobody would hire him because something about him felt wrong, dangerous. His name's Cole Bannister, the sheriff told me. He's wanted in 3 territories. Robbery, murder. He probably saw your husband alone and figured he had money or something worth taking. Did he? I asked. Did he take anything? The sheriff looked at me with something like pity. Your husband's gun, his boots, and the $40 he had in his pocket. $40. Thomas died for $40 and a pair of boots. They hunted Cole Bannister for 2 weeks, found his camp abandoned, found tracks heading north. but the trail went cold in the mountains and they had to give up. The sheriff promised me they'd keep looking, but I could see in his eyes he didn't believe they'd find him. Men like that disappeared into the wilderness like ghosts. I buried Thomas on our property, under a cottonwood tree where we used to sit in summer evenings. I carved his name into a wooden cross myself because we couldn't afford stone. Thomas Michael Price, born 1865, died 1891. Beloved husband. The first month after his death, I barely functioned. Neighbors brought food. Mrs. Garrett stayed with me some nights because I couldn't sleep alone. I'd wake up screaming, dreaming of Thomas crawling through dirt, calling my name. The sheets I'd washed that last day stayed on the line until they were gray with dust. I couldn't bring myself to touch them. Reality set in during the second month. I had no money. Thomas had done all the ranch work. I didn't know how to manage cattle, didn't know how to fix fences or break horses or do any of the 100 things keeping a ranch alive required. Our savings were gone. We'd spend them on supplies for winter. Mr. Garrett offered to buy the ranch. He was kind about it, said he'd give me a fair price, but even a fair price wouldn't last. I had no family to go to. My parents had died when I was 16. Thomas's family was back east and had disowned him for marrying. I was too poor, too common for their son. I tried to keep the ranch going. I really did. But within 3 months, half the cattle had wandered off or been stolen. Fences fell apart. The roof started leaking. Winter was coming and I had no firewood cut, no supplies stored, no way to survive. That's when he came back. It was a cold November evening. I was inside the cabin trying to patch a hole in the roof with canvas when I heard a horse outside. I grabbed Thomas's rifle, the one thing the killer hadn't taken, and went to the door. He was standing there in the twilight, tall, dark-haired, wearing new boots, Thomas's boots. I recognized them immediately. They had a specific wear pattern on the right heel. I raised the rifle. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold it. "You," I said. My voice didn't even sound like mine. Cole Bannister raised his hand slowly. "I'm not armed," he said. His voice was deep, calm, like he was talking about the weather, not standing in front of the woman whose husband he'd murdered. "You're wearing his boots," I said. "You killed my husband for $40 and a pair of boots." He looked down at his feet. Something crossed his face. Not quite guilt, but not quite indifference either. "I did," he said simply, "and I came back to make it right." I laughed. Actually laughed, high and hysterical. "Make it right? You're going to bring him back from the dead." "No," he said, "but I can keep you alive through winter. You're dying here, Eleanor Price, slowly, alone. I can see it from here." How did he know my name? How long had he been watching? "I'll shoot you," I said. "I'll put a bullet in your chest like you did to Thomas." "Go ahead," he said. He didn't move, didn't flinch, just stood there with his hands up, waiting. "You'd be doing me a favor, but it won't change the fact that you'll be dead within a month without help." I stood there for what felt like hours, that rifle pointed at his chest. I wanted to kill him. God, I wanted to. My finger was on the trigger. All I had to do was squeeze, but I didn't, because he was right. I was dying. The ranch was dying. Winter was coming, and I had no one else. I lowered the rifle. He lowered his hands, and the devil walked into my home. Cole Bannister moved into the barn that first night. Not the house, the barn. He fixed the stall that had been falling apart and made himself a bed in the hay. I locked the cabin door and slept with the rifle beside me. Didn't sleep really. Just lay there in the dark, listening for footsteps, wondering if I'd wake up with my throat cut. But morning came and I was alive. When I went outside, he'd already been working for hours. The fence that had fallen down near the south pasture was standing again. Fresh firewood was stacked near the door. He'd even fixed the hinge on the barn door that had been squeaking for months. He didn't speak to me, just nodded when I came out and went back to work. This became our routine. He worked. I avoided him. Days passed, then weeks. He never tried to come into the house, never asked for anything except food, which I left outside the door. We barely spoke. What was there to say? But the ranch started coming back to life. Fences got fixed. Cattle that had wandered were rounded up. The roof stopped leaking. Firewood piled higher. Winter supplies appeared. He'd hunted, brought back deer and elk, smoked the meat. By December, we had enough food stored to last until spring. I hated that I needed him. Hated that his hands were saving what Thomas's hands had built. Every time I saw him working, I saw Thomas's blood. But every time I ate food he'd provided, every time I felt warmth from wood he'd cut, I knew I'd be dead without him. The neighbors noticed, of course. Mrs. Garrett came by one day, found him mending fence. Her face went white. "Eleanor, who is that man?" I couldn't tell her the truth. Couldn't say, "That's the man who murdered Thomas and now he lives in my barn." So I lied. "He's a hired hand, passing through, needed work." She didn't believe me. I could see it in her eyes. But what could she say? A widow needed help. Having a man around wasn't unusual, even if it was improper. She left, but the way she looked at me had changed. The shame started then. The weight of it. Not just keeping a murderer alive and hidden, but lying about it, accepting his help, depending on him. Winter came hard that year. Snow buried the ranch for weeks. We were completely isolated. No neighbors, no town, just me and him, and the endless white silence. One night in January, the temperature dropped so low that the fire in the barn wasn't enough. I woke to him, knocking on the cabin door. Thought for a moment he'd come to kill me, finish what he started. But when I cracked the door, rifle ready, he was shaking. His lips were blue. "I'm freezing to death out," he said simply. I should have let him, should have closed that door and let the cold take him. Justice served by nature instead of law. But I didn't. I stepped aside and let him in. He slept on the floor by the fireplace that night. I sat in the corner with the rifle, watching him, waiting for him to try something. But he just lay there, wrapped in blankets, sleeping like the dead. In the morning, he thanked me and went back to the barn. But something had changed. A line had been crossed. He'd been inside the house. We'd breathed the same air, shared the same warmth. The next time the temperature dropped, I didn't wait for him to knock. I just left the door unlocked. It wasn't forgiveness. It was survival. That's what I told myself. February came. We were snowed in completely. The only world that existed was the cabin, the barn, the wide expanse of nothing beyond. We started talking. Not about Thomas, never about Thomas, but about small things. Where he'd come from, why he'd gone outlaw. His story was typical. Poor family, father who drank and beat him, ran away at 14, fell in with bad men. First robbery was to eat. Second was because it was easier than starving. After the third, there was no going back. "I've killed 6 men, he told me one night. We were sitting by the fire, him on the floor, me in the chair. "Your husband was the only one I regret." "Why?" I asked. "Why did you kill him?" He was quiet for a long time. "Because he looked happy," he finally said. He was riding along, whistling some tune, and he looked so goddamn happy. And I hated him for it, hated that he had a life and I didn't, so I took it from him. I should have shot him right then, should have grabbed the rifle leaning against the wall and ended it. But I didn't, because in some twisted way, that honesty meant something. He wasn't making excuses, wasn't claiming self-defense or accident. He'd killed Thomas because of jealousy and meanness, and he knew it. "Why did you come back?" I asked. "Because I couldn't sleep," he said. "Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him crawling, heard him calling for you. I've killed men who deserved it and men who didn't, but I always slept fine, except after him." March brought the thaw. Snow melted. The world opened up again, and with it came a new problem. People were asking questions. Where did this hired hand come from? Why did he stay? Why did a widow let a stranger live on her property all winter? Sheriff Dalton rode out one day, found Cole working in the field. They talked for a long time. I watched from the cabin window, heart pounding, waiting for the sheriff to arrest him. But he didn't. They shook hands. The sheriff rode away. When I asked Cole what happened, he said, I told him I was your late husband's cousin from back east, come to help out. He didn't believe me, but he couldn't prove otherwise. The lie was now public. The hired hand story had evolved. We were family now in the eyes of the town, distant cousins, respectable. But respectability had a price. The neighbors expected certain things. Mrs. Garrett started hinting that it wasn't proper, us living on the same property unmarried, even if we were cousins. People talk, she said. I knew what she meant. Either Cole had to leave or we had to marry. The thought made me sick. Marry the man who killed my husband, stand in front of a preacher and promise to love and honor him. It was obscene. But if he left, I'd be alone again, vulnerable. Winter would come again, and I wouldn't survive it twice. That's when it happened. Late April, spring had fully come. The world was green and alive. He came to the cabin one evening, stood in the doorway, hat in hands. I know what people are saying, he said. I'll leave if you want. I owe you that much. I really looked at him for the first time. He wasn't handsome, but he wasn't ugly either. Just a man who'd murdered my husband, a man who'd saved my life. Both things were true. If you leave, I'll die, I said. If I stay, you'll have to marry me, he said. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. I know, I finally said. We married in May. No ceremony, no celebration. Just went to the courthouse in town, signed papers in front of a bored clerk. I wore black. People said it was because I was still mourning Thomas. They were right, but not the way they thought. When we came home as husband and wife, he carried his things from the barn to the house, put them in the room that had been mine and Thomas. I stood in the doorway watching, feeling like I was betraying everything I'd ever loved. That night, he claimed what marriage gave him the right to claim, and I let him, because that was the deal. That was survival. I closed my eyes and thought of Thomas, and hated myself for what I'd become. I realized I was pregnant in August, 3 months after the wedding. I'd been feeling sick in the morning, exhausted in the afternoons. When I finally couldn't deny it anymore, I just sat on the floor of the bedroom and cried. This child growing inside me was Cole, the son or daughter of a murderer, conceived in a marriage built on blood and necessity. Every time I felt it move, I thought of Thomas, the children we'd planned to have, the family we'd never get. Cole was different when I told him. Something softened in him. He started being gentler, more careful. He'd put his hand on my belly when he thought I was asleep, whispering things I couldn't quite hear. I hated that he cared. It would have been easier if he didn't. The pregnancy was difficult, maybe because my body knew it was wrong. I was sick constantly, lost weight instead of gaining it. The midwife, not Sarah Caldwell, she died 2 years prior, but a younger woman named Ruth was worried. You're not taking care of yourself, she said. How could I explain? How could I tell her that every time I looked at my swelling belly, I saw Thomas's grave under the cottonwood tree? Winter came again, my second winter with Cole. But this time I was heavy with child, barely able to move. He did everything, cooked, cleaned, took care of the ranch. Sometimes I'd wake in the middle of the night and find him sitting beside the bed watching me sleep. Not in a threatening way, more like he was making sure I was still breathing. Why do you care? I asked him once. Because you're all I have, he said simply. You and this baby. It's the only good thing I've ever done. You haven't done anything good, I said. This baby exists because you killed my husband. He flinched like I'd hit him. Good. I wanted him to hurt, but the baby came anyway. In March of 1893, after 20 hours of labor that nearly killed me, a boy, healthy, loud, perfect. Ruth put him in my arms and I looked down at this tiny red face and felt nothing. I was supposed to feel love, overwhelming maternal love. But I just felt empty. This was Cole's son, the murderer's child. What will you name him? Ruth asked. I looked at Cole standing in the corner, his face wet with tears, staring at his son like it was a miracle. Thomas, I said. His name is Thomas. Cole's head snapped up, our eyes met. He understood what I was doing, naming his son after the man he'd killed. making sure neither of us could ever forget. Thomas, he repeated quietly. That's good. The baby, Thomas Jr., everyone called him, changed everything and nothing. I took care of him because that's what mothers do. Fed him, changed him, rocked him when he cried, but it was mechanical. Duty, not love. Cole, though. Cole loved that boy from the first moment. He'd hold him for hours, just staring at his face. Made a cradle with his own hands, sanded it smooth so there were no splinters, carved little animals for him. As Thomas Jr. grew, Cole taught him everything: how to ride, how to rope, how to be gentle with animals and hard with the land, and the boy loved him back, called him Papa, followed him everywhere, looked at him like he hung the moon. It killed me. Every time I saw them together, I thought, that should be the other Thomas. The real Thomas. My Thomas. Years passed. Thomas Jr. grew from baby to boy to young man. He looked like Cole, had his dark hair, his height, his hands, but he had my eyes. Every time he looked at me, I saw myself reflected back. He was a good boy, kind, honest, everything his father wasn't. And that's what finally broke me, realizing that this child, this product of murder and forced marriage and hate, was genuinely good. When Thomas Jr. was 16, he found his namesake's grave. I'd never taken him there, couldn't bear it. But one day he came into the house, confused. "Ma," he said, "there's a grave under the cottonwood. Says Thomas Michael Price. Who was he?" I looked at Cole. He was frozen, waiting to see what I'd do. "He was my first husband," I said. "He died before you were born." "How?" "He was killed," I said. "Shot by an outlaw." "Did they catch the man who did it?" The question hung in the air like smoke. "No," I finally said. "They never did." Thomas Jr. was quiet for a long time. Then he said something that shattered me. "I'll bet my pa would have hunted him down if he'd been here. Pa wouldn't let something like that stand." He had no idea that his pa was the man who'd done it, that every time Cole taught him to shoot, he was learning from his namesake's killer, that the man he called Papa had made him fatherless before he was ever born. I should have told him, should have ripped away the lie and let him see the truth, but I didn't. Because what would it accomplish except destroying him? Cole and I never talked about it. In fact, we barely talked at all. We lived in the same house, raised the same child, but we were strangers bound by secrets and shame. But something happened over the years. I don't know when exactly. Maybe it was seeing Cole with Thomas Jr. Maybe it was the way he'd still put his hand on my belly when I was pregnant with our second child, a daughter we named Mary. Maybe it was the sheer weight of time wearing down the sharp edges of hate until only exhaustion remained. I didn't forgive him, could never forgive him. But the hate became something else. Not love, never love, but a kind of tired acceptance. This was my life. He was my husband, these were my children, and I couldn't carry the rage forever without it consuming me. Thomas Jr. is 43 now. He has children of his own, grandchildren I adore. He thinks his father is a hero, a man who saved his widowed mother and gave him a good life. He named his own son Cole after his father. Every time I hear that name, I feel the knife twist. Cole died 5 years ago. Heart gave out while he was mending fence. He was 68. I found him in the field, lying on his back, eyes open to the sky. There was a look on his face, not peace exactly, but relief, like he'd been waiting for this. I buried him far from Thomas, on the opposite end of the property. Couldn't bear them being close, even in death. At the funeral, Thomas Jr. cried, told stories about what a good man his father was, how he taught him everything, how he loved his family, and I stood there, dry-eyed, listening to my son praise the man who murdered his namesake. The secret died with Cole. Thomas Jr. will never know. Maybe that makes me a coward. Maybe I should have told him years ago, but some truths are too heavy for the living to carry. I'm 73 now. The ranch is still here, run by Thomas Jr. and his son. Sometimes I sit under the cottonwood tree next to the first Thomas's grave and wonder what my life would have been if he'd lived. If I'd had his children instead. If I'd never known what it meant to lay with a man I hated. But then I look at Thomas Jr. and Mary and their children, and I can't wish them away. They're innocent, they're good, they deserve to exist. So yes, the man who killed my husband gave me a son, and that son gave me grandchildren. And those grandchildren are the only light in a story that's otherwise all darkness. Was it worth it? The hate, the shame, the years of lying, the weight of it all. I don't know. I'm still not sure I'll ever know. But it was survival. And in the Old West, for women like me, sometimes survival was all we had.